I'm shooting this video at about 3:30 a.m. I just got done laying the groundwork for the video, and then I learned some new details that left me speechless. It's not always about how gruesome it was or what transpired. Sometimes it's the little things that leave me baffled. Just listen to this next story, and you'll understand why. March 19th, 2006. The world would make way for Le'Brishia Hobbs. She would be born to parents Dolores and Le'Brishia Hobbs, where the place they would call home would be the state of Indiana. Upon entering this world, Le'Brishia would be the firstborn, but she wouldn't be the last. She would be the oldest of 6 other siblings. Le'Brishia is described as someone who was sweet, someone who was caring, someone with a beautiful smile. She's also described as a leader. Having 6 younger siblings would teach her just what it meant to be in a person of position. So she had to be someone who was worthy of being looked up to. Like your average female, she enjoyed doing hair or doing other people's hair. She also enjoyed dressing. She's also a self-proclaimed sneakerhead, someone who enjoyed purchasing shoes, a lot of them. As she grew older and began to find out what life was about, she would begin acquiring goals, and she was setting out to make them a reality. By the year of 2022, Le'Brishia Hobbs would be 16 years old. At that point, she was a student at Southside High School, located in Fort Wayne, Indiana. By now, her personality has attracted friends, but she's also close with her family. She also had plans of what she wanted to do after graduation. She wanted to become a pediatrician, a job where her kindness and caring heart could be put to work, helping others. In mid-2022, school would let out for summer break, which Le'Brishia was looking forward to. It's the free time for the kids where they're allowed to spend time with friends or go to the mall with family. However, before school would let in and she would reach the 11th grade, something would transpire. Instead of going to school and accomplishing her goals, it would be vice versa. Le'Brishia Hobbs would end up in a hospital, with others helping her. July 6th, 2022. Around 11 a.m. in the morning, Le'Brishia's mother would awaken, and when she goes to the backyard, she would find her daughter suffering from a gunshot wound. She would immediately contact EMS, and they would arrive on the scene. Once arriving on the scene, they would realize that she was suffering from a wound to the head, and she would be rushed to the local hospital. Shortly after arriving to the hospital and being analyzed by the doctors, it would be declared that she was in a coma with minimal brain activity. So at this point, the family does the only thing that they can do: take turns sitting bedside, hoping for the best. With Le'Brishia in the hospital, the authorities would quickly work to figure out what happened, and they would start by interviewing family and friends. Reports state that an unnamed witness who lived in the home with Le'Brishia would give the authorities information. This witness is presumed to be one of her siblings. They would tell the authorities that the night before Le'Brishia was found, she was texting someone. The witness would identify the person she was texting as a girl who went by the name of Lay. The witness then describes that they text back and forth. Then around 2 a.m., Le'Brishia would go outside to meet with this female. Shortly after Le'Brishia went into the backyard, the witness describes hearing the word stop, and then shortly after, hearing a gunshot. But at the time of hearing the gunshot, the witness details that Leigh was known for carrying a firearm. But the witness also says that Leigh was known for letting off shots in the air, not trying to hit anyone or anything, but firing her firearm was just one of her things. So when the witness heard the shot, they didn't really think too much of it. The witness would eventually get in their bed and go to sleep, not knowing what had happened to Le'Brishia. Armed with this information, the authorities would quickly identify Leigh as 16-year-old Lac'shia Underwood. At that point in time, they didn't have an eyewitness to say that they physically saw her do anything, only that she was at the home. So at that point in time, they were relying on a warrant to give them what they needed. Shortly after the incident, investigators would witness Lac'shia leaving her home, in which she was a passenger inside of a Trailblazer. At the time she was in the vehicle, she was riding with one of her friends. After exiting the driveway, the car would be immediately pulled over and then searched. And inside of Lac'shia's bag, they would find a .22. When the ballistics report came back, that firearm was in fact the firearm used in the incident with Le'Brishia. And on July 12th of 2022, 16-year-old Lac'shia Underwood would be charged with attempted murder. Now in custody, Lac'shia's phone would be searched thoroughly. And while going through her phone, they would uncover text messages between her and another female. The text messages would reveal that this other female had first-hand knowledge of what transpired. They would also find in these messages that this female helped Lac'shia obtain the weapon. So, after laying eyes on this, a warrant would be issued for her. Police would take 16-year-old Jalea Brown into custody, and she would also be charged with attempted murder. While the arrests were happening, Le'Brishia Hobbs was in the hospital, fighting for her life. Her mother would often be by her side and said that she would respond to some of the things she said by wiggling her nostrils. Her mother would coach her during this time and say, "Take all the time you need. Pull through. We need you home, Le'Brishia. Your family needs you." But sadly, a month after being in the hospital and in a comatose state, 16-year-old Le'Brishia Hobbs would succumb to her injury. On August 23rd of 2022, she would officially be pronounced deceased. With Le'Brishia Hobbs no longer being here, the criminal charges against the two females would be enhanced, and those charges would be upgraded to murder. With this now being a homicide investigation, the authorities would double back, basically start the entire investigation over. They would interview family and friends. They would re-interview Lac'shia and Jalea before they eventually end up speaking to Lac'shia's friend, the friend that she was riding in the car with on the day she was pulled over and the weapon was found. The day Lac'shia and her friend were pulled over, the friend denied any knowledge of the weapon or any knowledge about anything. So the friend was questioned and let go. But now that this is a homicide investigation, the authorities pushed just a little bit harder, and they were able to get more of the story. They simply told the person, either you can be a witness or you can be charged. But we know that you know more than you're telling. And that's when that person decided to become a witness. This unnamed witness would detail that Lac'shia Underwood and Jalea Brown were in a relationship. This person would also tell the investigators that Lac'shia Underwood used to date Le'Brishia Hobbs. During the time the incident occurred, Lac'shia Underwood and Jalea Brown were under the impression that Le'Brishia had intimate photos and videos of them two. The report states that Le'Brishia said that she was going to release these pictures, I guess out of anger, or maybe just pulling their leg. But operating under the impression that their intimate photos would be released, they decided to come up with a scheme to rob Le'Brishia of her phone. This witness then says that they were the driver on the night that the incident happened. They drove Lac'shia and another person over to the home of Le'Brishia. The witness says that shortly after, a shot was heard. Lac'shia and another person gets back in the car, and then they drive off. Now armed with an eyewitness, the police have more leverage. So they go back and they interview Lac'shia. They let her know basically, hey, your friend is flipped. She told us everything. So now it's time for you to tell us exactly what happened. At first, Lac'shia didn't want to tell what happened. That is, until the prosecutors came to her with a deal, saying that they'll let her plead guilty to a lesser charge in exchange for her testimony. But in this testimony, she has to tell it all. Lac'shia then takes this deal, and she tells the investigators exactly what happened. Lac'shia would describe that on the night of July 5th of 2022, she had lured Le'Brishia out of the home under the false pretense that she was trying to get back together with her. Text messages pulled from Lac'shia's phone would corroborate this story. On that night, she had texted Le'Brishia to come outside. She didn't respond. And then she texted, "So you're really not going to take me back?" And then shortly afterwards, a text was sent saying, "On my mama, I'm cool off you." The manipulation tactics would prove to work, because shortly afterwards, Le'Brishia would agree to come to the backyard and meet with Lac'shia. But upon entering her backyard, Lac'shia wasn't there. She would be met by a person wearing gloves and a ski mask, and this person was brandishing a firearm. That's right. Lac'shia Underwood wasn't even in the backyard, the person who set this entire thing up. Lac'shia tells investigators that after sending this person to the backyard of Le'Brishia's home, she heard a shot, and then afterwards, this person came running back to the car. Lac'shia then asked this person, "What happened?" He simply told the unnamed witness, who was the driver, and Lac'shia Underwood, who was waiting in the car, that Le'Brishia was now ragdoll. Lac'shia told the authorities that at that time, she didn't even know what the term ragdoll meant. She had to Google it. Court records do prove that on that night, Lac'shia Googled the term ragdoll and found out exactly what it meant. After the perpetrator got back inside of the car, the unnamed witness, who was the driver, and Lac'shia Underwood, who was the mastermind, would all drive off. The shooter is now identified as 17-year-old Raymond Washington. On the night that this transpired, this happened in the early morning hours of July 6th of 2022 at around 2 a.m., which means after Le'Brishia Hobbs experienced her injury, she laid in the rain-soaked grass for almost 9 hours before her mother would find her in the morning. She then laid inside of a hospital bed for the next month, fighting for her life, only to ultimately lose that battle. But to add insult to injury, on the night that this transpired, they went over there to get her phone. Well, on the night that 16-year-old Le'Brishia Hobbs went through this incident, none of the culprits left with the phone. They left empty-handed. And that makes this situation that much worse. If we're being honest, I never really like hospitals. A hospital, no matter what reason I'm there for, has always given me a feeling of grief. You know, I've been in the hospital to see loved ones lying on deathbeds. And even if I'm there for something that has nothing to do with me or my life, I still feel the presence of others' grief, others' mourning, because sometimes the hospital can bring great relief. You know, some people make it out of their situation. They get a second chance at life. The hospital also brings forth life in the baby ward. There are tons of life being born every single day. But even when those children are being born, someone is on another floor fighting for their life. And some of those people just don't make it out. People like Le'Brishia Hobbs. I know we have all heard the saying that in a fraction of a second, your life can change. I mean, if you watch this channel, you hear me say it all the time, but it's so true. There's always going to be an underlying question of what if? What if Le'Brishia Hobbs would have decided not to come outside? What type of person would she have became? Would she have done great things? So many unanswered questions. I want you to understand that these stories are never easy to do, especially stories like these, because this girl was 16 years old. I want you to think back in the days when you were 16 years old. The freedom, the passion you had for life, oh my God, it's sad to see what the world is turning to. And it seems like nothing is getting better. It seems like things are getting worse day by day. Nothing is changing. And I've heard conversations about this everywhere. People bring politics into it. People bring economics into it. People bring, every other thing but the truth. And the truth is that we as humans have lost our empathy. But it's not just empathy. Just purely, morally. Just, oh my God, when I get in these tantrums, I tend to get speechless because there's nothing I can say or do that is going to change anything in this world, because the truth is people are just purely disgusting. And once you learn to live with that fact, then maybe you won't have to ask me why I do these stories. Because when it all boils down, I don't know what I'm doing. I kind of see myself immortalizing these victims by telling their story, but nothing I say or do will take away the pain from the family. Nothing I do will be able to bring them back. They may live on through a source of a video, but again, I want to reiterate that at the end of my video, the same question that will always remain will be a big what if. If you've never heard me say this in my video before, well, let me tell you now while you're watching this one. I am no saint. I'm no angel. I'm no savior. I am a normal person just like anyone else, because to be honest, I read some of these comments and I truly get bewildered, because I'm like, man, some people hold me to such a high standard that, what if you knew who I was years ago? And the things that I survived, the things that I went through, I've been in the streets. But to say that I still stand here today and tell these stories of these victims that passed on, it kind of gives me a feeling of, survivor's guilt. That, I'm still breathing. These people aren't. I guess what I'm trying to say is cherish your life. I want you to cherish it thoroughly. I want you to wake up every morning and realize that it is truly a gift to be able to breathe inside of your lungs, to be able to experience life day after day. Because these stories of young people losing their life are all too common these days. And, let me apologize if I'm going on with this laborious speech about life, but some things just truly need to be said. And I'm not the first one to say them. I won't be the last one to say them. But I'm going to say it. This world needs to change. But I think the underlying truth about that is it never will. And now you should understand why this channel's name is Truthful Reality. What happened to 16-year-old Le'Brishia Hobbs was truly senseless. We're talking about a girl who was the oldest of 6 other siblings. Someone who had people looking up to them. Someone with dreams who was planning on accomplishing them. On top of that, dreams of being a pediatrician to help others. And she ended up losing her life over what? A phone? Yes, it's truly heartbreaking. My heart goes out to the family. Rest in peace, Le'Brishia Hobbs. Thank you for being a light for others.